I think it's been a brilliant morning. Would you agree to this? No sound, come on. Would you agree to this? Awesome. You know, I've grown up in our country reading in the Financial Times to how the economy is changing the way India is performing, how the world is performing on the financial level. And the only way I could learn, gain access to knowledge was only through watching someone I really admire, because from where the information comes matters. All information needs to come through a lot of research, a lot of on-ground reports, and then you put it out in front of everyone, and that's where the real content which comes out. And I think it's been I can say, being grown up, I learned how to speak about financials. I could understand how to read financials. I could understand how the corporate world is changing, not only in India, across the world, because of one person that I admire the most, and it's an honor to introduce her on the stage today. Along with her today, we also have someone very special who's building the unicorn, who has the unicorn, which is into the baby care, and they have transformed the entire business through sustainability, but business with sustainability, because that's the way the world wants to grow. So with a great honor today, I have this privilege to invite and introduce Ms. Shereen Bhan, is an Indian journalist and news anchor. Shereen took over as Managing Director of CNBC TV 18. She has an experience of 20 years, 14 of which were spent in tracking corporate, policy news, and events that define the business landscape in India. She has been responsible for breaking a range of news stories that have redefined the Indian economic landscape in recent times, and has also interviewed some of the biggest names in business and politics, both domestic and global. Shereen is also the anchor and editor of Young Turks, one of the India's longest running shows on entrepreneurs, a section that over the last 13 years has successfully built a niche category in business news programming. With this, can I have a round of applause and have Shereen on the stage, guys? Come on. Building unicorns in a digital era. No one better than Shereen. Ma'am, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. What an absolute privilege to be here speaking to you. I know that we've got people, delegates here, participants here from many different countries, so it's an absolute pleasure and an honor to talk about something that has given us a lot of hope, confidence, and optimism, and we're talking about India's startup ecosystem. I've had the privilege of hosting a program called Young Turks. In fact, it just turned 21. It is perhaps the world's longest running show that focuses on startup stories. So I've had the privilege of really seeing the Indian startup ecosystem build itself out, evolve, and change over the past 2 decades. In that context, everyone seems to be focusing on unicorns, companies that have been able to manage $1 billion in valuation. But what I've always believed in is creating value, creating impact. And so joining me today are 2 entrepreneurs who are not just chasing valuation, but are also chasing values. And what's interesting is that their story started barely a few years ago when they founded their company in 2016. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in giving a very warm applause to Ghazal and Varun Alagh, the founders of Honasa Consumer, more popularly the brands that you see on your shelves, Mamaearth. Ghazal and Varun, many thanks for joining us here. Welcome to the stage. Okay, so that film, very crisply captured their journey since they started in 2016. So what I want to do today is focus on the past, the present, and then talk about the future. So let's talk about the past. And Ghazal, I'll start by talking to you. Because the idea of starting Mamaearth really came from the fact that you were out there as a mother looking for a product for your son that you didn't find available on the shelves. That was the starting point of your startup journey. For the benefit of this audience here, how did that idea translate into reality? You started with 25 lakh rupees. That's what you managed to get together between the two of you. And then, of course, you did get some funding, external funding on board as well. But from idea on what was it, a napkin or a sheet of paper to execution, tell us about that.
So hi everybody, a very, very warm afternoon to all of you guys here. I think our journey started because of a very personal reason, right? We were looking for natural, safe, toxin-free products for our son, and we were not able to find, like you said, find the products here in the Indian market. And, being a husband and wife, you end up sharing everything, so you also end up cribbing about a lot of things. And I think the idea started with us largely me complaining about the fact that why is nobody else in India thinking about this or doing something about it? And that's the moment when Varun said that, if not anybody else, why don't you do something about it? And that's how the idea started. So it wasn't on a napkin, it wasn't on notes, it wasn't on Excel. It was a conversation between parents who were trying to find the best quality products for their son. It was as simple as that. And I think that triggered us to do a lot more research to see if it was even doable here in India, if we could get the right kind of ingredients, raw materials, manufacturing partners, etc. And we did that research. After talking to a few people, we realized that it was not just doable, but doable at affordable prices, which would sit really well with the Indian audience. And that's how it all started. After that, I think the reason for starting, which was our son, and we felt that it's not just our baby, but all the Indian babies, they deserve the goodness of toxin-free products. That reason was so strong that we decided to quit our full-time jobs, and we took the plunge of starting out. We launched Mamaearth with just 6 products, and back then we thought we were just going to be a baby care brand.
But very quickly you pivoted away from just baby care to personal care in general. How many SKUs today?
300, more than 300.
More than 300.
In just Mamaearth.
So it started with 6 and more than 300 in Mamaearth. And for the benefit of this audience, they've been on a bit of an acquisition spree. We'll get to that as well. But Varun, why don't you talk about that? The pivot away from baby care now to being a personal care brand with the aspiration of being, and I know he's told me this previously as well, with the aspiration of being one of India's largest FMCG companies in the future.
That's the vision. And I think, of course, the journey for us always started by looking at the consumer, right? The consumers were us to start with, right? Who were looking for a product. Right? But then that at our hearts, right, continued to be a value and a DNA that we followed. And as we followed that DNA, it was a very regular exercise that we had where we used to talk to, and everyone in the company, and we still do, everyone in the company is supposed to talk to 25 consumers every month. Right? Now we are 2,000 strong, and imagine how many consumer conversations that we're having because of that. Right? But even when we were early on, right, we were doing that very regularly. And when we were doing that, we were getting newer ideas, newer directions, right? And consumers were challenging what we felt were our own boundaries. Right? And one of the boundaries was clearly around, they were buying into the ethos of the brand. And from very early on, we were a why-based brand rather than a what-based brand. And we wanted people to buy into why we exist rather than what we sell. And hence, sustainability, being plastic positive, planting trees and linking your orders back to those trees and showing you that, hey, because you made this purchase, right, you've actually contributed to making Earth a better place to live in. And this is the Google location of the tree. You can go and actually check it out. Right? And, some of those pieces actually made them buy into our why. And when they were buying into our why, right, of course, it was not the babies who were buying the products, it was the moms and dads, right? So they were saying, hey, we would love to buy stuff for ourselves as well. And why don't you, find stuff and provide us stuff? And we clearly felt that, India had a wide space of, our cultural nuances being missed out. Right? And, people were largely importing sort of, categories and products here, but not crafting for India. Right? Because we are culturally different. We have our own DIYs, we call them nuskhas here, right? And we create our own stuff to sort of, and we believe in it, right? We like onion juice for our hair, we like turmeric and chickpea based Upton for our face, right? And we apply curd in our hair as conditioners, right? And all of that, right, is different about us, right? But that's what makes us special, right? And we wanted our brand, which was listening to consumers, right, to actually provide some of these things, right, in easy to use, packaged formats, right, which consumers can pick up. And that's how that journey just continued to expand from baby care to personal care and now to multiple different brands outside of Mamaearth as well.
Absolutely. And I like the way that you put it. It's more about the why and not the what that you actually offer to the consumer. So let me just take that conversation forward, because as you pointed out, what you're attempting to do now on this end of your journey is to customize, is to personalize, is to make this more centric to an Indian audience and hopefully then an international audience as well. As the Chief Innovation Officer, because the journey didn't start with R&D being done in-house, one of the changes that you're making now is taking much more control and ownership as far as the R&D is concerned. How important was that for you to make that journey? And now as you look at customization, personalization, which through the internet is much more of a sharp differentiator for a brand, how are you incorporating that in the product strategy and the product mix going forward?
So Shereen, when we had started out, I mean, really, like any other startup, you have limited resources, right? You're trying to do the best with the limited options that you have. And even back then, what we realized was that there was so much intelligence and expertise available with people who were dedicatedly doing this, that it made more sense for us to have partners and work with them. So for example, in our journey, we started working with this scientist couple who were also parents to help us figure out what the toxin-free formulations should ideally look like. We partnered with a US-based not-for-profit organization called Made Safe, who could go through our formulations, test our products, and then give us that seal of safety saying we are the ones who are certifying the product safe. And I think even from a consumer lens, that was very important, because any brand would stand and say we are the best and we are the safest. But till the time there's somebody external who's certifying you safe and putting their equity also on stake, is where consumers have a sharper belief in the product. So we started like that. Of course, over time, and even back then, the formulations were our own, because they were not already there with the market. So we were developing formulations with a set of ingredients that we wanted to use, by not also using particular ingredients which were actually banned in countries outside of India. But because India did not have a regulation back then, nobody was actually putting that check. So we were the ones who did that, who put that process into place. Very glad that a lot of other brands have started following suit, and we are now crafting better products. But even today, I think that paranoia around quality of products, formulations, crafting the best for the consumers by listening to them, not by bringing a Me Too product, but by understanding what is the white space, what is it that they are looking for, and how can we deliver quality and convenience to them through our propositions, still stays at the heart of it. Of course, this started with Mamaearth. Now we have 6 more brands that we have launched. We've acquired a few, and that paranoia around quality still continues to be there.
Well, the paranoia around quality is what drives you and what drives innovation at Honasa. I'm not calling it Mamaearth because, we have to keep reminding ourselves that it's gone beyond Mamaearth. It is now a house of brands, so to speak. But Varun, I want to come back to you and address the issue of the times that we live in. For the benefit of this audience, everyone is talking about the great India opportunity, the great India story, this large middle class, this large addressable market, and so on and so forth. forth. And those numbers go into hundreds of millions, right? But the actual addressable market, i.e. people who are willing to pay a certain premium for a product, pay a certain price for a product. If you look at the difference between the so-called addressable market and the actual paying customer, there's a large difference. As an entrepreneur, how are you reading the landscape today? What would you say is the opportunity size, the actual opportunity size? Forget the addressable market, but the real opportunity size today, given where we stand in terms of per capita.
You know, I think you cannot apply one lens to look at that. Right? It depends on the kind of product that you're trying to sell. Right? That would define your real addressable market. Right? The more layers or filters you apply, right, on your product, right, the lesser it can become. Right? So, for example, if you're offering a product at absolutely mass penetration kind of pricing, right, the entire sort of buying population, which could effectively be more than 700 to 800 million in numbers, right, could potentially be your addressable market. But if you're offering something which is at the premium end, right, probably 120 to 150 million, right, is what is the right TAM. And on the other hand, if you're offering something which is going to be available through mass distribution channels, then the addressable market can be much larger. But if you want to limit yourself initially to e-commerce-based, digital-based model, then probably that filter will lead to a size of about 200 million, which is a transacting audiences available here. And if it is a higher frequency or higher evolution product, where the knowledge required to actually do a transaction, like for example, financial products,
sure,
right? Where you actually need someone to be far more sort of evolved to make that transaction happen in an online manner, unassisted. Right? There you would probably apply one more filter, and you would go down to a 15 to 20 million kind of numbers. Right? But let's also remember, right, even with those filters, right, these numbers are larger than sizes of countries. Right? In some cases, a 200 million is larger than sizes of continents in the world. And hence, even with the filters, right, the opportunities continue to be large. Right?
So using the current filters that you have, what is your addressable market that you hope to capitalize from the 6 million that you're currently being able to do today? Where do you see yourself over the next 5 years?
So I think for us, right, because of our price filter, right, we would say our addressable market is about 100 to 150 million Indians, right? And that's what we are going to first capture the share and minds of over the next 5 years, right? And as we do that, right, we'd probably build capabilities both in terms of deeper distribution, right, as well as in terms of possibly being able to offer mass priced products, right, so that we can then unlock the next level of opportunity. Right? And by the way, 5 years is a long time. The way we're shaping, right, that 150 milestone itself might become 250 in the 5 years that is there, right? Because we are the fastest growing large economy in the world.
The hope is that it will move higher and not lower, but you're right in pointing out that 5 years is a long time. Speaking about the outlook as far as the ecosystem is concerned, and Ghazal, let me start by asking you what we are seeing currently, not just here in India, but world over, and largely driven by what's happening in the US. Interest rates have moved up, there are macroeconomic uncertainties, and that's playing out on the funding ecosystem here as well. There is now a much more focused approach to profitability. I know the two of you have always been focused on profitability, but there is now a lot of focus and attention for startups to deliver a profit, or at least deliver a path to profitability. I want to understand from your own journey, how crucial was that from the day that you decided to start the business, that you wanted to in fact ensure that there was a return on the kind of investments that were going in, that this was a business that was built not just on the back of frugality, but on the back of wanting to turn profitable. And they have been profitable now. You've got what, FY22, 14 crore profit, and FY23, the first half. Yes. Go ahead.
So I think the way we've built the business, even when we started out, it comes a lot from where we come from. So we come from a middle class background, right? Our parents have been into business, and I think we understood the core fundamental rule that only if the business is making profits is when the money comes home. That philosophy stuck with us. So even during the early years, I think what we were very cognizant of, like you said, was return on every penny that was being spent. We were frugal, we were very careful about the choices that we were making, and we were very particular about not just being frugal, being able to spend was also something that we were cognizant of, but being able to get the maximum return out of that spend is also a focus that we always drove. I think a look on the P&L was something that didn't go out of our sight for a single day as well. There were times when we were chasing growth, but there was always a vision which could help us define that, okay, how long are we going to sustain this, and how is this going to turn into future when it comes to a sustainable business? What are the metrics that we are chasing? Being very focused on data, technology to back some of the inputs that we were giving for a stronger output possibly 3 years down the line. And like Varun said, we've been profitable for the last 3 years. But I think from day one, that is the only way of doing a business that we knew. And apart from that, also, I would say a very strong focus on governance and on systems and processes, so that as we scale, we are not getting any surprises. We are being as open, efficient, and honest as we can, even with our board of directors, etc., has always been an area that, more than me, Varun has always driven very strongly within the organization.
Yeah, Varun, I want you to address that because, again, it's not just something that we're seeing here in India, but the last few years, and this is part of every boom and bust cycle, when there's a lot of money chasing companies, you tend to go through euphoric cycles, and at that point in time, it's growth at all costs or growth at any cost. As you see things playing out today, what are you most mindful of? What worries you today as an entrepreneur? What are you paranoid about? Forget quality. What else are you paranoid about today?
You know what? The pendulum, and I'm paranoid about balance, and growth at any cost was the wrong side of the pendulum. But then being very short term in looking just for profits, when you can chase a much larger goal of getting much better sustainable growth for decades to come, because you invest in right things today, and not be short term about it, is also an area which is what needs to be looked at. So I think while the pendulum had skewed too much to one side, I would be worried about the pendulum skewing too much to the other side and us being too short term about businesses. Finally, what you're building, and if you choose to have lesser profits, you're choosing to make an investment, right, in your P&L. And that investment, if it is longer term, right, for example, for us, that investment in brand building. And if we are driving more awareness, if we are building the brand right, more consumers will buy and continue to buy our products for years to come. And that is something that we are being choiceful and consciously doing, because we believe the India opportunity is so large. Right? Now, I'd be paranoid about, being pushed into the corner where I have to take a decision which is very skewed again towards not chasing that growth opportunity, because really we are still starting, right? And we could be 10 times of what we are over the next 10 years, and I would rather sort of be that, than get into the mindset of a small single-digit growth rate for the next 10 years. What's the point?
Yeah, I guess you're right in pointing out that you need a balance, and as opposed to swinging between two extremes. I know a lot of people here, Varun and Ghazal, are also curious to know that given the market conditions at this point in time, you have, of course, filed for an IPO. And I know, ladies and gentlemen, they cannot say very much because it's already been filed with the regulator. But, is that weighing on your mind, the market sentiment, the market environment at this point in time? And would you like to review? I mean, of course, a lot depends on what the regulator comes back with as well.
No, I think, from a process perspective, we are still engaging with the regulator, and hopefully soon we should get our approvals, right? But even when we filed, right, it wasn't the best of the conditions, right? And today the conditions are far better. There is far more FPI in the last 2 months, which has sort of started to coming into India. Right? But I think we are not even looking at some of those short-term indicators. Right? We're in it for decades, right? And this is just an event in that journey. Right? And if you are in it for decades, right, you would rather chase the long-term value creation. Right? What will happen in that event or what will not happen? I don't think we are having sleepless nights towards it. And when it will happen, everyone will know. Hopefully some will participate. Right? And then we will continue building the way we are continuing. Right? And we will deliver and create value for everyone around us.
Yes, absolutely. And there's no point second guessing what may or may not happen. But, Ghazal, I want to address this issue because I know that many people here in the audience are curious about that as well. The two of you started this company as a couple. You've got clear demarcated roles in a way, but at the end of the day, it's all sort of, the lines are blurry between what you do, what he does, how much work you bring back home, how much work you leave in office. How do you create that space for the two of you as individuals, for the two of you as a couple, and for the two of you as co-founders?
I think the two of us in business together, according to me, was the magic sauce. Because you're losing sleep together, you're building towards the same mission, you're in it not just professionally, but also personally. And that commitment was something else when we started out. I do agree that as you scale, some of this can interrupt your personal life. It does. We've tried to demarcate or I would say create borders between personal and professional, and very soon realize that that doesn't work. Both of us are so passionate that work flows into your life and life flows into your work, which we've come to terms with. We've accepted that. But yeah, I think professionally having demarcated roles and saying, okay, this is, and we will have point of views. We do have disagreements, we do have agreements as well. But at the end of it, we have roles where the executive authority of taking the decision lies with each one of us. And we believe in respecting the choices that each of us make then. We might be aligned or not aligned, but then we come together as a team and we work towards that. So that's something that has worked. If the roles were not demarcated, it might have been really tough. And I think on the personal front also, both professionally and personally, when it's the both of us, we have ensured that whatever we discuss between us when we are going out, be it in front of our kids personally or be it in front of the team professionally, we are on the same page so that nobody else is able to take advantage of the disagreements that we might have had. I think that's also very, very important in business. And other than that, I would say be okay. I mean, try and maintain a balance on a weekly, on a monthly level. It cannot happen on a daily level. And being able to make peace with it took us some time, but we're there now. We ensure we have certain rituals which are driving personal life. We have certain rituals where even professionally we are coming together, we are brainstorming, we are having fights, we are having disagreements, we are reading, we are backing arguments with data, and that in the process makes both of us better.
Yeah, and I think that's interesting because as you pointed out, no matter what happens at the back end, you might disagree, you might argue, you might differ, but on the front end, you put up a united front. But, talking about rituals, and Varun, I want to ask you this. I believe the two of you have a date night ritual where you go out and don't discuss anything to do with work, but really it's more about how you see yourself growing as individuals.
No, I think, very, very early on in the relationship, we realized that, a lot of our conversations, right, and that happens to a lot of different relationships, be it our relationship with our parents or our relationship with each other, that a lot of conversations are logistic conversations, right? Hey,
who's picking up the kids?
Yeah, right? How was your day? Yeah. What happened? And, what did this person say, right? Or what did that person say? And then where do we plan our next vacation? This is very logistical conversation, right? And the real emotional conversations can take a back seat, right? Because they are actually harder to do. And you actually have to think, spend mental energy. Right? It takes work to do emotional conversation. It takes work to answer a question, how are you feeling? what is making you anxious, right? What are your fears, right? What do you think is becoming better and worse over the last 3 months, right? I mean, these are...
I want to interrupt you there, because this is expressing your vulnerability is not something that comes naturally to somebody in a position of power or in a leadership role, because you're taught not to express vulnerability. You're taught to project that you have all of the answers, because not projecting that is almost seen as a sign of weakness. How is your leadership style evolved over the years? I mean, do you express vulnerability with your team? Do you tell your team, for instance, that, look, hey, I don't have the answers, but can all of us try and find the answer together?
No, I think that personal journey, right, of us being far more vulnerable with each other, and has translated into professional impact as well, right? Because we are far more comfortable with each other's vulnerabilities, right? And even with our teams, right, we have become far more open and accepting to certain things not being fully clear to us, right? Certain areas where we are also afraid and anxious, right? And we're a part of the same group. And I think it's been a revelation, because we always felt, hey, what would they think? Right? That you're the CEO, you don't know how to do this, right? But when you actually are vulnerable, right, it's probably the most courageous form of leadership, and it brings you together emotionally and at a human level, right, and creates teams and bonding which probably deliver far better in the longer term.
Vulnerability can be and should be seen as an attempt at courage and better and more effective communication as well. But Ghazal, I want to talk to you because you're also a woman leader, and we don't have very many women founders in the startup ecosystem in India today, or globally as well. What do you believe needs to be done to ensure that we create a much more facilitative environment that allows women to dream, that allows women to have ambition without having to apologize for it?
I think I would like to start by saying that we have come a long way. I think the last 5 years have been very promising, even here in India. When I had started out, to be very honest, when I was looking for leaders that I could approach and talk to who were also women and had experienced the similar phase as I was in, being a mother and also trying to grow a company, I could on my hands just name 2 or 3 people and probably just reach out to one of them. Today we have a much larger ecosystem. We have many more women leaders who've actually set example by doing it and are approachable. And that's something that I'm also personally trying to give back to the community, being a part of some of the women-oriented networking systems, by being accessible, by sharing the little bit of journey of 6 years that we've had to ensure that, whatever I learned by doing it and failing and like getting it right or wrong, whatever, they're also able to at least visualize that. But I think today it's getting better. The numbers are still low, but in a country like India where the population is so large, anything to start showing up in statistics takes time. So probably another 7 to 8 years, these numbers will start looking better as well. See, women have very different personal and professional needs. They also behave very differently, and one needs to understand them to be able to give them that freedom of making choices for themselves and thriving in the ecosystem. So what we have learned, at least within our organization, is that whenever a woman is facing a challenge and she has to take a choice between professional and career and whatever, by just asking her, what is it that will help you get over this? And ensuring that we are becoming a part of that journey, be it moving cities because you really want to pursue this career, be it going on the parenthood journey, becoming a mother, and ensuring that when you come back, you're being celebrated and not being, trying to find a place for yourself within the organization that might be demotivating, or just, letting them feel that we're looking forward to having you back whenever you're ready.
Absolutely.
I think some of these things have really helped us as an organization. We have seen women stepping up over their challenges, taking an aggressive role, taking up opportunities, and doing really well. And I believe that this is how the ecosystem around us is evolving as well. I mean, I see a lot more women entrepreneurs starting up and taking that decision because they feel they have 5 more women to look up to who have done that in the past, and that courage to, for them also to pick it up is now.
Absolutely. Creating that diversity of role models is also essential so that women know that it can be done. And I do hope that we see the statistics and the numbers change. But, you know, Varun, many milestones in the last 6 years. List out for me the top 5 milestones that you hope to achieve. You can set the timeline for that. 5, 10, what is it that you're working towards?
Well, I think, 5, 10 milestones would be a lot to sort of, list out. There is a larger vision and agenda that we are on, and that is, like you said, to become the largest beauty and personal care FMCG out of India for the world. And we want to build brands that millions of Indians love. And we want to, over that period, not just create value for investors who become a part of our journey, but also for the community by giving back through our brand purposes that are part of our sustainability initiatives. And I think we want to be one of the best places to work for, especially for women. And we already have 51-49 ratio. 51% of the folks that work in our company are women, right? And we would like to set those examples, right? Because honestly, for our industry and for the category that we are in, and that is going to be one of the largest levers of growth, right? The more women join population in the country, the more the personal care category sort of growth. It's proven across the world, right? So we are strong believers in that. And from organizational change to societal change, right? Which is, it all starts at home.
Yeah.
And it all starts at what are we teaching our girls when they're young, right?
And what are we teaching our boys? Not just what are we teaching our girls, what are we teaching our boys?
Agree, right? And how are we making sure that, they're being treated equally, they're being given the right opportunities, they're taking risks from early on,
Yes.
and they're being told to dream big dreams, right? And that is probably going to change this in the longer term.
Yes, I certainly hope so. I'm going to give each one of you the final say because our time is up, is what is being flashed to me. Ghazal, I'll start by asking you, there was a question on the screen before we walked in. What makes you happy as an entrepreneur? So I'm going to ask the two of you that question. I'll start with you. What makes you happy as an entrepreneur?
This is one question that I've asked myself 100 times over the last 6 years. It becomes very important, and I have a very simple answer to it. I think being able to build a company while also living a life and not giving up on that is what makes me happy, truly happy. What I've seen, at least within the ecosystem, is that a lot of people propagate that you should ideally not give in more number of hours to work, possibly forget about your personal life and not have that balance, which is not healthy. And health is the new wealth, right? If you're not healthy, you will not be able to build a company because you'll be unwell for whatever reason. If you're not happy, you will not be able to give back to your team that energy that actually the team thrives on. So for me, I think creating a balance between the two and ensuring that you're not giving up on either, because it's one life and you need to live it fully. That's my definition of happiness.
Varun, what makes you happy as an entrepreneur?
I think ability to create impact, and the fact that you now have, you're creating employment generation opportunities, which is impacting so many lives positively. And in the future, that impact can multifold, right, and multiply, is what makes me happy. That, as an individual, I've been able to impact not just my life, but more importantly, so many lives around me. I think that makes me really happy.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause for Ghazal and Varun Alagh. They're dreaming big and aspiring to create India's largest personal care FMCG company, made in India, but for the world. 6 years on, and we wish the two of you the very best of luck. Thank you very much for speaking to us here today. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for bringing a great audience.
Thank you so much, Shereen. Thank you so much. If I can invite to felicitate our speakers And moderator, can I have Miss Erica Rastelia Sherpa of Italian delegation? Can I have noise from Italian delegation here? Please. Can I also invite Megan Visset of Futurepreneur Canada Sherpa for Canada? Can I have the Canadian voice up? Come on, a big round of applause for our speaker and the moderators, please. Wow, look at the flags going up. One more time, can I have a big round of applause from everyone? Please. Make some noise, guys.